What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Lakers Outsiders podcast. Gary Kester here with you. I can't even say as always anymore because I guess it kind of varies now. But I'm here now. That's all that matters. Jacob Rude joins me as per usual. We can be civil for now because Duke, North Carolina, round 2 is still a little over a week away. Jacob, how you doing?
I'm doing good. You say we can be civil for now, but I don't think you've seen the amount of Duke players I've written down for us to talk about today. So,
all right. Well, breaking news: Jacob might not survive the remainder of this podcast. But we do have a special guest with us today. If you're a part of Lakers Twitter, you should know who he is. Got to meet him during Summer League for the first time last year. Friend of the show. Love his opinions, love his draft analysis, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Mike Garcia joins us today. He's at Canyon Driver on Twitter. Mike, I appreciate you joining us, and I can't wait to talk some hoops here in a second.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. If you're familiar with Mike's work, if you've seen him in the past, he's contributed here and there with Laker Film Room. He did some work with Jacob at Lake Show Life and also at Hoops Addict. So make sure you give him a follow at Canyon Driver on Twitter. I'm telling you, you won't regret following Mike. Really love Mike's opinions on the Lakers and especially draft analysis. We're going to talk about a prospect a little later on that I will definitely agree with his takes on. But as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about the 2018 NBA draft. I know it's only February and the draft is about 4 months away, but because of the NBA trade deadline and the Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance deal with the Cavaliers, the Lakers have a pick in both rounds finally, which is good news for the Lakers because coming into this season wasn't looking good. They had a second round pick via the Denver Nuggets, and that was it. But now they have the Cavs first round pick, which right now, as of today, is slotted for the 26th pick in the draft, and they also have the 48th pick from the Denver Nuggets. Obviously, those will change as the season goes and the standings change. Teams win and lose games. Hopefully, those picks will get better as we go along, but we're going to talk about some options for both of those. So let's dive right on into it. We're going to talk about the first round, 26th pick as it stands right now. Mike, you're big on the draft, and you've definitely followed it more than I have personally. Who are some options in that late first round range that you think you think that could be good fits with the Lakers?
Well, the first pick that I have in mind that I kind of mildly hope that he slips down to the pick because he's gotten a lot of recent hype is Chandler Hutchison. Yes. And the reason why I choose him is because he's a local kid. I think he's from Mission Hills, California. But what makes him great is, he's a 6'7" wing. He's got all of the physical tools. He's got half-court athleticism, but on top of the ability to finish, the three-point shots developing, and he actually has some ability to pass out there on the floor. And it just seems like an easy fit with shot creativity with Jordan Clarkson being gone now.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the Lakers, I would say, top needs is some help out, or at least some depth on the wing, because right now, especially with Clarkson gone, they lose that scoring punch, that kind of creator off the bench. And right now you're looking at Corey Brewer probably getting a little more minutes with Clarkson gone. So, and he's a free agent this season, which I have a hard time believing he's going to be back. So the Lakers are going to definitely need some depth on the wing. Hopefully that comes with Paul George, wink, wink. But I definitely like the idea of getting a guy like Hutchison. And obviously I'm very, very biased with Hutchison here as I live in Boise, and he's a Boise State player. But I will say this about Hutchison. I agree, Mike, with all your points that you made on him. The kid is a really high character guy too. Like everybody around Boise State basketball raves about Chandler Hutchison, his work ethic, his attitude, just everything. Like I said, very, very high character. And, I think that's important. That's important with the way the Lakers are trying to kind of rebuild their culture and get guys. Obviously, we've seen it this year, I think, with the young guys and the chemistry that they've built, whether it's, the improved play on the court or clowning each other on Instagram. It's all kind of fun to watch. And I think Hutchison, with his character and with his basketball ability, would be a good fit. So I'm all for it. But again, I'm very, very biased. Jacob, what are your thoughts on Chandler Hutchison?
I think it's concerning how much Nevada dunks on him.
Okay. He followed it up with a monster block on the dude that dunked on him. So
okay, well, I'm just throwing that out there.
How much did Honey pay you to say that?
He paid me nothing, but I'm going to demand something after this now.
You should.
No, I mean, I think the number one thing the Lakers kind of need to address, I mean, in general, I'm in favor of taking best player available, but I do think wing help is probably the number one kind of area to address. Even with the current roster with Brewer, they need wing help, and they're going to lose him. And so, yeah, Hutchison, there's no in there. Hutchison is I have him kind of on my radar as somebody I wouldn't mind the Lakers taking. He's 6'7". He can play guard. He can probably play a little bit of forward, and he can knock down the three. He's a scorer. I mean, he just fits a lot of kind of needs, checks a lot of boxes for what the Lakers need right now.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And I think wing play just in the league in general is so important. I think we see it pretty often every year that, I mean, you just get a lot of production. Like the better teams have a ton of production from wing players and guys that are versatile out there and can do a number of things. And I mean, that's another thing that I like about Hutchison is I think he has a certain level of versatility that can be very, very helpful for him at the next level. He's not a young prospect. He is a senior, but that bothers certain people, I guess. For me, it's not really a big deal, especially the later in the draft you get. I think it's just about getting quality players. But
Kuzma wasn't a young prospect either, and that's right. So
sometimes those guys are just ready to go from from day one. And I mean, sometimes they're not. It's the draft is kind of it's all a crapshoot. So it is what it is. But Mike, we'll obviously agree on Hutchison, but are there any other guys that you kind of are looking at that could fall to that late first round, early second round range that the Lakers could potentially draft?
Sure. I'll list 3 additional names. Yesterday there was some news about D'Anthony Melton, and he's in a little weird, controversy with the NCAA because of whatever that situation is. But D'Anthony Melton had a really great last year for USC, and I think he's just a really underrated prospect. I mean, he fits these general requirements of size and athleticism. He's 6'4", he's got a 6'8" wingspan. He's an above average athlete. He can, really get out there and transition. But the reason why I like him in that late first round is because he can really defend. And it's to the point where I've considered, Lonzo's already I would say he's a solid defender, especially for a rookie. Josh Hart, very switchable. I think he plays very tough, and I mean, I'm a huge Josh Hart fan, and I think D'Anthony Melton is kind of right in that mold as well. And the league is leading towards not just small lineups, but it's about skills and versatility. So it's not always about bigs being able to play small with their perimeter shooting. It's also about guards and wings being able to switch to bigs and defending effectively and adding perimeter range. I am concerned with his ball handling. It is a little bit rudimentary. I am a little bit concerned with his shot, even though he's a fair 3-point shooter, 30%. Maybe there's some potential there. But for a guard who's 6'4", he gets 2 blocks and 2 steals and a block, and that's from a guard spot. And just from point of attack or even off ball, he's just a legit defender at the NCAA level, and I expect it to translate next level altogether.
Oh, go ahead, Jacob.
Well, I was going to say that he does. It's kind of weird. There's a lot of guys kind of in that range that have some weird kind of, issues going on with them. Melton withdrew from USC, so we're not really going to get to see him the rest of the year. And then for anybody that's seen the last couple mock drafts from Draft Express, I mean, they've had Anthony Simons, who isn't in college, and Mitchell Robinson, who isn't in college. Some of it had to do with kind of some of the FBI investigation stuff and whatnot, but those are a lot of guys that maybe not as much on Robinson because he's a center, but Simons and Melton are two guards who could. I mean, like we've all said, I mean, guards and kind of wing play is what we need, I think, and those are a couple guys. I'm not quite as high on Simons as I am Melton because taking an entire year off from competitive basketball, it's not great for development, but then again, Simons is still only 18. But yeah, no, Melton is one that I would be totally fine with. If it's a wing player in that range, I can probably just talk myself into it.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jacob earlier about going best player available. I mean, could you see? I mean, I've seen it in some mock drafts to this point, and I've kind of scratched my head on it, but at the same time, I think a lot of teams do go best player available more times than not, and they kind of figure out fit and stuff later. Because a lot of times, I mean, every offseason there's a lot of roster shuffling going on. But Jacob, I mean, could you see the Lakers going with another power forward or center, especially because Randall is a restricted free agent? So with Nance gone, Channing Frye is a free agent. Could you see the Lakers going with another big guy?
I mean, they've kind of already proven in the past that they'll go best player available. They took Nance with Randall on the roster, stuff like that. So, yeah. And as you said, Lopez and Frye and Randall are all free agents. So you're really only looking at Zubats. I think Thomas Bryant has an option too, a team option. So I think Zubats is the only one that's kind of guaranteed as a big man to be on the roster. That being said, I mean, they do have control over Bryant and Randall, whether they come back. But even then, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I think it would probably more likely be somebody that slips into that range, more so than them taking someone like a Mitchell Robinson or a Jonte Porter, a couple different guys I've seen mocked to the Lakers. I wouldn't rule it out. I just don't know that it would be something that would be – I think it would just have to be somebody that blows them away, basically, for them to take another big guy over some type of wing player when they've kind of talked about wanting positionless basketball and shooting and stuff like that. So, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out, but I would think that they would want wing players more so than big men.
Yeah, and it's interesting, especially with this draft, I think, because I'm somebody that I always kind of laugh at the thought of mock drafts so early, but I'm also that guy that clicks on it and has to see what somebody has my team picking, unless it's Jacob, because I know he's going to pick a Duke player, but but no, like this draft is really interesting because I think there's going to be a lot of this one's really hard to predict. I think just kind of looking at it kind of early on. Of course, it is 4 months away. Like there's going to be a lot that changes, obviously, with the conference championships coming up and the NCAA championship tournament coming up. Guys will get to play on a big stage against unfamiliar opponents, and some people put more weight into that than others, and especially also with kind of the NCAA investigation, there's certain prospects that or the FBI probe, going on. There's certain prospects that are kind of affected by that, and then as you guys as we mentioned earlier, Alonzo Trier, we might have mentioned that off air, but anyways, with his failed drug test for a PED for a second time, there's so many variables with trying to predict the draft, and it's really interesting because certain guys that you think might not be there, like there's no way they'll be there, end up possibly being there, and then certain guys that you think will be in that range get picked way earlier, and so on and so forth. So really, really interesting to try and guess where things are going to go, but with the whole pre-draft process and everything, there's going to be a lot of shuffling. So, but it's always fun to speculate.
I think it's a kind of similar to last year and really kind of a lot of years. I think for the most part, kind of the guys that are going the lottery are kind of in one tier. There might be various tiers in that, but basically there's kind of a separation from the lottery, and then from kind of 14, 15 on, depending on kind of where you're looking, there's kind of a huge variation. I mean, I have 2 mock drafts pulled up right now. One of them has Gary Trent Jr. going 15th. The other one, Draft Express, has him 50th. And it's stuff like that where there's a lot of these guys that just kind of have a huge variation and really can kind of go anywhere from that mid-first to mid-second round almost this year. It seems kind of weird with a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I feel like it reminds me, I guess, a little bit of, I want to say 2015, where it seemed like about the top 10 was pretty consensus. And then after that, I felt like it was just totally up in the air. And I mean, I don't know. Like I keep saying that so much is going to change between now and June. So I guess we'll see. But all right. Any other prospects you guys want to talk about potentially that we think will be there late in the first round for the Lakers?
I mean, I have quite an extensive list, but the best player remaining on that list is it's Landry Shamet. He's basically 6'4", long arms, kind of thin-railed, thin body, so I don't think he can really bulk up. But he's just such a good shooter, and it's not just about I think in this case I'm picking the best players available generally at that late first round pick. And it just so happens to fit what the Lakers kind of need. Mm-hmm. The Lakers do need a wing. They could use, a backup defensive guard in Melton, or they could use a shooter in Shamet who's has a possibility of playing some backup point guard for them as well. And cases, it's kind of like Lakers are going to win. They just have to pick the best of whatever prospects are remaining. With the mock drafts that I've seen, a lot of the talent goes to all of the big men, and they're all right at the top of that first round.
Yep.
And that's especially in the lottery. And, I'm a little bit concerned that there's going to be maybe less than a handful of teams, but a few teams that'll look for that wing player just because, he's the only wing and we need that guy. And yes, this talented big might be a better player, but we need this dude. So, I'm holding all the hope for Hutchison, right? But if Landry Shamet is there and Melton is gone, I'm not going to complain over having a guard that could shoot with an motion offense equally both sides of the floor, finish at the rim. And, just watching the last game, he had just this unusual ability to get to the rim. It wasn't any, there weren't any dynamic ball handling moves. Maybe a subtle hesitation, maybe a crossover, but nothing, no moves linked together. And yet he was at the cup and he was there often and he was hitting his open shots. And it's like, the Lakers could use that guy too. Right. So in any of these cases, I'm happy with any of these guys. It's just a matter of, this is the guy we want because we found this certain characteristic or trait or skill that really stood out among the rest. So he's the best player available. It just so happens to fit. And it's just like last year's draft, Lakers needed a point. They needed depth at wing. They needed, a center would have been nice, and preferably one with shooting ability. So we got Thomas Bryant to make Jacob happy. We got Lonzo Ball to make Los Angeles happy. And they got Josh Hart. Well, they traded for Josh Hart to make me happy. So we all collectively win, right? So great. So, between Hutchison, Melton, and Shamet, and even a couple other guys in that late first round, even if guys don't declare 100%, and a few guys may stay in school for whatever reason, like even Miles Bridges, and there was another player from Texas A&M. Both were lottery picks, and they decided to stay. Yes, thank you, Robert Williams. They both decided to stay. I thought that was not the most brilliant decision, but they decided to stay anyway, and it wasn't predictable, and yet, I think there for the Lakers.
And that's another factor, but there's definitely options.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. There's enough wing players kind of in the area where the Lakers are at that they can, like some guys can return to school, and there'll still be a lot of options available because, everybody that Mike just said, none of them were on the list that I wrote down of guys. Just I only had 4 guys written down, but that kind of gives you an idea of kind of how deep that kind of area is. The guy that's number one kind of on my list for realistic possibilities is, and this is just like I've fallen in love watching this guy. I think it's pronounced Junin Musa. He is kind of the embodiment of irrational confidence. He is 18 years old. He's playing in the Euro League and is shooting almost 37% from three on 3.5 attempts per game. There's some concerns about him kind of defensively. He doesn't have a great wingspan. He's not really athletic, but boy, can he shoot the ball. And he's only 18 playing. This is his third year playing professional basketball. So he's one of those guys that has a lot of experience even at 18. He's just really a scorer from kind of every area. And as a 6'9" small forward, he has great size, kind of fits into that little bit into that mold of positionless basketball and kind of just having a whole bunch of wing players out there. The other guy I'm really high on is Keita Bates Diop, or Diop. I'm not sure you say his last name, but man, Hani and Dylan both are going to owe me after this. But no, Keita, I don't know. He's another one of those guys that, depending on where you're looking, he's either like a mid-first round guy or like some places I saw him like in the second round. He's probably going to be Big Ten Player of the Year. He's a big wing for Ohio State, 6'7", can shoot the ball well. He shoots 37% from three. He rebounds well. He just he has a kind of a really good all-around game, really. Takes care of the ball, has a high usage rate, 29% usage rate, but he has less than 2 turnovers a game. Mm-hmm. So it's stuff like that. They rely on him a lot at Ohio State. They've been really good this year. And he's kind of a big reason why. And then the other two guys I had, I obviously was going to get a Dookie in here. I mentioned him earlier, but Gary Trent Jr., he probably is the guy that has the biggest variance in how you look at him, like I said earlier. He's a 6'5" guard, 6'8" wingspan, but he is shooting – I've waited on regression this whole year from him from three, and it hasn't happened. He's attempting 5 threes a game and is shooting 42% from three.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, that alone is a reason to draft him. And then the last guy I had, kind of somewhat similar to the same mold as a D'Anthony Melton, would be, I think it's pronounced, I don't know, Kyrie Thomas. He a little bit disappointing this year. Maybe not quite as good as some thought, but he has a lot of kind of the measurables that are going to make GMs fall in love with him. He has a 6'11" wingspan for a guard. Guard, probably forward a little bit. Has the ability to spot up and shoot. But, I mean, as you can tell, I think based on both of our lists that the idea is kind of the same. Just get wing players to put out on the court. I think all 8 guys we said were either almost all of them were wings or a point guard or something like that. So I think the idea is basically the same. There's just a lot of guys that kind of fill the need that the Lakers have.
Yeah, give me guys, especially on the wing, that can shoot and or defend. I mean,
yeah,
that's – I mean, the Lakers have been a pretty solid team defensively this year, but, I think a couple key guys that, have had a lot to do with that are going to be free agents. Julius Randle is restricted, Brook Lopez, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, that you can go down the list here. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of roster turnover, I think. So, bringing in some young guys that can defend, whether it's at the guard position, just really on the perimeter, especially kind of trying to cut down dribble penetration and things like that. So, and obviously defending the 3-point line, that's important, but shooting is huge. Especially with, guys playing next to Lonzo Ball. I think, and if the Lakers do retain Julius Randle, I think it's important since he's not really a shooter. He's a bruiser that tries to get to the bucket and really do his damage inside. It's definitely important to kind of surround him with shooting and get some shooting with that second unit too. So
just need 3-and-D guys to put next to LeBron and Paul George.
That's a podcast for another time. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options, I think, for the Lakers that really are all good fits. I mean, like I said, there's probably going to be a lot of roster turnover. So it wouldn't surprise me if they just go with best player available, and if that ends up being a center, a power forward, whatever. I'm not really surprised at anything at this point. I think the only thing I'll say about the Lakers is that I have full faith in them drafting players because the last 4 or 5 years or so, they've done very, very well, especially this last draft class in 2017. An excellent draft class. Talking about Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart, and Thomas Bryant, which we haven't really seen Thomas Bryant yet. Hopefully we will. But the other three, man, like key contributors, like big-time contributors for the Lakers this season. So
that's 3 bona fide rotation players in one draft. That's
phenomenal.
Crazy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. We've talked about the first round. The Lakers also, as I mentioned earlier, have a second-round pick. Right now it's slotted to be 48th via the Denver Nuggets. So mid-second-round pick in that range. Who knows who's going to be available in that range? We might mention some guys that won't even get drafted. It's all really unpredictable. But Mike, I'll throw it to you first. Do you got any late draft sleepers that are kind of flying under the radar right now?
I wouldn't say sleepers. I know they've gotten some attention lately. One name that sticks out is Jacob Evans from Cincinnati, and he's just right in that mold of Trevor Ariza or Anthony Brown, where he's that 3-and-D archetype. What concerns me a little bit is he's not as aggressive as a scorer as I thought he would be, especially when you extrapolate his numbers over 36 minutes. Mm-hmm. But he's an 80% free throw shooter. He's a proven defender. And he knows his limitations. He's going to be a spot-up guy. He'll attack a closeout, and then he's there to defend, and he defends very well. It's Cincinnati. It's what they do. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe he slips down to that pick, maybe not. But if that kind of prospect is out there at that pick, then, I mean, once again, it's possible best player available and best possible fit for the Lakers as well. And it just so happens to fall into their hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jacob, who are you looking at? I have a feeling you're going to say a name that is going to really trigger me. But
I'll cover my ears.
That second round pick, who do you think could be there for the Lakers?
I'll let the anticipation build first. There were a couple names I did right. Kind of in the same vein a little bit as a D'Anthony Melton and the defensive guard. Javon Carter is one that I like from West Virginia. Mm-hmm. He is a stud defender. Is a point guard, so you'd kind of be drafting him as a backup point guard probably. Mm-hmm. But he's still a guy. I watched him play against Trae Young in Oklahoma. Trae Young still had a ton of points, but he defended him about as well as you can defend Trae Young or a guy like him.
Picking him out full court at times too.
Yeah. He averages 3 steals a game. He plays for West Virginia, who always is a crazy defensive team. Mm-hmm. Usually full court pressing guys and stuff, but
press Virginia.
Yeah, exactly. So he's a guy that defensively is one of the best players in the nation. And he already, I'm sure, is better than Tyler Ennis, so it's an improvement there. 2 other guys I had actually from the same team, and we mentioned one of them earlier. I have down both Alonzo Trier and Raul Alkins, or Alkins, I'm not sure how you say it, but really either of them. Trier is going to be interesting now because this is his second suspension, even if it is something that he shouldn't have been suspended for. I don't really know what the story is. I know the first one got kind of overturned or appealed or whatever. Even if it is something that's overturned, it's just kind of going to be out there. It's going to be something that fair or foul that people are going to knock him for. On the court, though, he's averaging almost 20 points a game and shooting 43% from three.
On 5.5 attempts per game.
Yeah, he's another guy who I've been waiting on the regression and it's not coming. So he's a perfect kind of 3-and-D type of guy.
Also a good free throw shooter, which is a huge need for the Lakers.
he might be their best free throw shooter from day one. But yeah, him and Alkins. Alkins isn't quite as good of a 3-point shooter, right around 37%. But again, it's just kind of guards. Alkins is 6'5". I think he has about a 6'9" wingspan. A little bit more of a not quite as good of a shooter as I said. So there's a little bit of differences there. But the last name I wrote down just to make Gary mad was Grayson Allen. I will say he has played really well after they put him back at point guard. I don't really know where he's going to go in the draft. He's a guy that I've seen in the first round and I've seen late in the second round. So I don't know if he'll be there at the second round.
I hope not.
When he's on, he's a really good shooter. It's just kind of been hit and miss throughout really his whole time at Duke. Plus whatever other kind of character baggage you want to attach to him. You'll have to deal with that as well. So I want them to draft him just to see Lakers Twitter meltdown while I just sit back and laugh. It would be just so amazing.
You'll see at Gary Kester meltdown in a hurry.
If they draft him, I'm gonna find like the Boise radio police scanner, and because you are soon going to end up in jail. 100% certain of that.
Oh yeah. No, I'm afraid of what would happen, like if that does happen. And Pelinka, I remember Pelinka's wife went to Duke, so that always worries me that like he might be partial to Duke players. But
think how much fun it would be to root for Grayson Allen, Gary.
That sounds miserable. I still don't know how you do it.
So much fun. Just let the hate flow through you. It empowers me.
I'm not even going to go into that. My second round options are anybody but Grayson Allen. If anybody that's not Grayson Allen, I'm good with. But no, it's funny, like looking at kind of this list of players and kind of big boards and stuff, because I was just kind of thinking to myself that players that we might think will be available in the range that the Lakers have their first round pick at number 26 right now could also be players that are there at 48 and vice versa. So it's so difficult to predict. One name that I've kind of noticed lately, and I haven't looked too heavily into the draft yet personally, but Aaron Holiday, I think, has played really, really well this year. And, you know, he was obviously a former teammate of Lonzo Ball. I haven't really seen a whole lot of him defensively. From what I've heard, it's not great on that end, but he's a guy that shot 42.6% from three this year on 5.5 attempts. Good free throw shooter, 5.7 assists, almost 20 points a game. So offensively checks a lot of the boxes I think that the Lakers would be looking at. Defensively, he is listed at 6'1", so that kind of takes away from what the Lakers want to do scheme-wise defensively, in terms of switching a lot of things defensively and kind of having that versatility 1 through 5 that makes things simpler as far as schemes go. But he's a guy that has played really, really well this year offensively, and you know, he's a junior, so he's a little bit older prospect. I think he's going to be 22 this year. So another guy that I'm kind of keeping an eye on, just because we've mentioned multiple times already, the shooting, scoring, the playmaking, could be valuable, I think, as a part of the second unit for the Lakers, and, another guy to keep an eye on. But Mike, I'll throw it back to you. Any other guys you want to talk about that probably will be there in the second round, maybe undrafted, kind of in that range?
Okay, so I've got two more names. One is Shamory Pons from St. John's and Trayvon Blewett from Xavier University. Let's start with Shamory Pons. He's about, 6'1", guard. He's a point guard, but he's kind of in that mold of what Nick Van Exel was as a player too. So he's this quick point guard. He's really shifty, has a nice change of pace, and he has a really good knack for creating separation to get his own shot off, whether it's along the perimeter or in the painted area. Now, one of the reasons why I think he might slip all the way down here is because his shooting across the board isn't that great. Right now, he's 50% two-point, which isn't stellar. 28% from three-point land, and I kind of think that that's kind of mixed because there's off-the-dribble shooting. So pull-up shooting tends to be worse than regular catch-and-shoot shooting in the first place. But overall, as a shooter, he's still an 80% free throw shooter, so I think there's potential there. And then I don't expect him to be this great defender either, but right now he's getting 2.5 steals a game, so at least he can force a couple turnovers, which would be nice. So even if he's a backup point guard, it would be nice to have a genuine shot creator coming off the bench instead of just a guy who might be, a game manager setting something else up for the wings. It's just another offensive option out there. One other player I've got, who may not even be drafted, and I'm just going to throw him out there, is Trayvon Blewett from Xavier. And Blewett isn't this dynamic athlete, and he has straight line driving abilities at best, but what I do like is he has a very easy shot. It's very simple mechanics. I'll date myself a little bit, but he kind of reminds me of, Eddie Johnson out there because they have similar forms. He's shooting 39% career three-point percentage, which is the 3 past years combined, and he's a 78% career free throw shooter altogether. So he's got requisite size. I think he's 6'7", 6'8". I'm pretty sure he has a 6'10" wingspan. He's about 210, 220 pounds. But sometimes you just need to pull up a guy off the bench to get off quick shots, just to shoot over the defense or outshoot the defense, and he's a guy that can actually do that for the Lakers if he's actually available at the pick.
Yeah, and I think, anytime you can get a guy, especially with the second unit, that can, they can just get buckets. I think that's so important. Obviously, you hope, it comes efficiently, and it's not like, I don't know, a guy like Nick Young or something like that, where you never really know what you're going to get. But I always kind of go back to last year's NBA Finals, which might be a weird example, but we saw insane point totals and just offense completely control the series. And I think that's just kind of the direction the NBA is headed. Obviously, you want guys that can defend and do a number of things, but man, having guys that can score is so important now. And I think, if you can get a guy like that, especially late in the second round, late in the draft, there could be a lot of value there. He's an older prospect. I'm looking at his age right now. He's going to turn 24 this year. But like I said, I think I said earlier, that's really not a big deal to me. That's still a young player by NBA standards, and I think he's got a very translatable skill set that can make him, a rotation guy very early on. My main issue with Trayvon Blewett is that Anthony Irwin would be just insufferable with the Blewett puns.
See, that's not what I thought you were going to say. He's an Indiana native. He played. Thought you were going to make some terrible Indiana joke.
No, Indiana's fine, I guess, but no, I can already see the tweets from Anthony and just me wanting to throw my phone out the window. So,
Blewett is one that I do like as well. He played, as I said, he's from Indiana. He played with Yogi Ferrell in high school. Feels like he's been at Xavier forever, but I think the main thing with some of these guards and backup point guards, if you draft them, is that I will be thrilled because it means no more Tyler Ennis, so I'm not going to complain about any of them. But yeah, I do. Both those guys I would be totally fine with. I do Blewett probably more so. I've liked him. Like I said, I saw him in high school. I've watched him forever in college. Another kind of one other name I'll throw out there from Penn State, Tony Carr. We're talking kind of offense and shot making and whatnot. He's another guy. He's a guard. Probably be more of kind of a backup point guard, but he's hitting 46%, excuse me, from three on 5 attempts a game. He is an unconscious shooter. I don't know if he'll declare. He's only a sophomore, and right now Draft Express has him 65th. He's a 6'3" guard with a 6'8" wingspan, though, so the potential's kind of there. I would be surprised if he went undrafted if he declared, but Draft Express is a little smarter than I am, just marginally. But no, yeah, I mean, I do agree that I think the league's shifting more towards offense, and the Lakers need more of it. As good as their defense has been, their offense is still a little bit behind. So getting guys like this who can come in and make shots, create shots, stuff like that, I think will be important in this draft.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've said it a number of times already, but there's going to be options, I think, with both picks to get quality players. Maybe not stars or, whatever, but, guys that can step in and be rotation players. From what I've seen in this draft, and I'll obviously look more into it as, the next 4 months progress and we lead up to the draft. There's a lot of options. And I'm pretty excited now that the Lakers have a late first round pick. And it sucks because I want Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance Jr. to play well in Cleveland, but I also want Cleveland to lose games so that pick is better. But hey, maybe if the pick ends up 27th again, the Lakers seem to do pretty well when they have the 27th pick. So I guess I don't know. Maybe that's a good omen.
Let there be some kind of growing pains a little bit. Let them struggle through the end of the regular season, and then let them just go like 16-0 and win the title or something. Just let there be some struggles. Let's get that pick into the low 20s so we can kind of have our pick of the lot, and then just hope we don't draft a Shabazz Napier to convince LeBron to come.
Oh, I can just picture Jordan Clarkson, NBA champion, sliding in DMs everywhere.
He would be unstoppable with that. Like the confidence and swagger he would have.
Oh, he'd be pulling up from like Trae Young range. So
worth it.
One topic that we talked about before we went on that I want to touch on real quick because we do have some time. Is the possibility of, now that the Lakers have a first round pick, a first and a second round pick, is the possibility of trading either pick. Mike, I mean, I think draft picks are really valuable, and I think in this draft especially because there's so many different options that the Lakers can go. But what are your thoughts on the possibility of trading this pick, either maybe to shed some salary or whatever the case may be?
I think the Lakers will value this pick. I mean, I understand that it is a guaranteed contract with the first round pick in the first place, but usually it's at the lower end of the salary. And I can't imagine that interfering with the cap situation too much. So,
right.
Even I don't think the Lakers can even trade a pick for the future pick because it would be the consecutive picks rule or whatever it might be. But even if they just try to move up just a spot or two, it's still kind of difficult for me to, find that one prospect that, oh, he's in this general area, we need that guy. Because whether it's Hutchison, whether it's Melton, whether it's Shemet, I mean, I like all these guys kind of equally right now unless one of them stands out. And unless a guy like Troy Brown slips all the way down from, and I think he plays for Oregon State, unless he slips all the way down, then I don't see where the Lakers would actually bother trading picks. And there's also a part of me that thinks that, they may not be guaranteed, playing time onto the Laker roster in the first place, even if it is a first round pick. So they might be on South Bay Lakers for quite a while. And I think now that even when the Lakers are deciding to shed salary, considering the situation with Zubats, Bryant, and now that we can trust Randall to play center, sometimes there's not playing time available. So there might be, they might have to entertain the idea that, hey, this guy might be pretty good for South Bay Lakers in development. We can be patient with him and then bring him on later into the season. So it's just something we're thinking about overall.
Yeah, Jacob, I mean, how much do you think their free agency plans or goals might factor into this pick and possibly trading it? Obviously, the thing at the top of their list that if it was possible, which I think it's nearly impossible, is to shed the contract of Luol Deng. I don't see it happening. But I mean, I kind of wonder what the Lakers, what they want to do in free agency and how that might affect their usage of this pick.
They seemed the kind of impromptu press conference type of thing that they had. They seemed pretty thrilled with the fact that they got a pick to give their scouting department another chance at finding a guy. Mm-hmm. So I think a likelihood of them moving the pick without getting one back is pretty slim. That being said, we saw how valuable draft picks are becoming. There were hardly any moved around the deadline. The Lakers got that.
Lakers were the only team to get to acquire a first round pick, I believe.
Well, on deadline day itself, I think the Bulls got one for the Mirotic trade.
That's right. Yeah.
But still, we saw how valuable they are, and that kind of works both ways. So maybe if a team really likes someone, I don't think it would happen in the range the Lakers are at. Another asset they do have, though, is they have next year's Chicago Bulls second-round pick, which I don't think Chicago's getting any better anytime soon. Not substantially better, I should say. So that's going to be kind of one of those almost fake firsts where it's going to be one of the first few picks in the second. So they have some draft capital to work with a little bit. They don't owe any more picks, first-round picks, that is, after this year. So they have some wiggle room now, which is the first time in a long time they've had that with draft picks. But that being said, just kind of the way they were talking after getting the draft pick, they really want to continue putting young guys on the court and around their core and whatnot. So I'd be surprised if they moved it, especially now that they can just stretch Luol Deng and essentially get to the two max spots. Right. I think if somehow they still needed to create room, they'd probably be going harder with it. I'd be surprised. I wouldn't necessarily be against it. I would just be surprised if they moved the pick with Luol Deng or something to create space at this point.
Personally, I guess I kind of feel that's the only way they would trade this first round pick is if it means shedding Deng's contract.
Or to get Kawhi.
Yeah, that too. But with so many teams strapped cash wise, so many teams are over the cap and a lot of teams are kind of flirting with that luxury tax level or they're over it. I think teams are really valuing first round picks and kind of team friendly contracts, especially if you can hit on a pick, even if it's not like a top pick, like a guy like Donovan Mitchell, that we talked about before we went on, late lottery pick, I believe. And has just been phenomenal for the Jazz. And I think that's, I believe in utilizing, all aspects of roster building, trades, free agency, the draft, because I think it's, each one has its own level of importance. But when you talk about sustained success and long-term success, drafting well is so important when you do that. Getting quality rotation players at the very least on, cost-friendly contracts and kind of building your foundation that way is huge. And I think the Lakers are definitely on the right track with that. I think their young core has been very, very promising this year, and hopefully they can add some established talent and free agency around it, and maybe add another young piece. So,
and that's kind of, I mean, it pains me to say it, but that's kind of what the difference was between the Lakers and the Spurs, the late 2000s. The Lakers basically just ignored all their draft picks and kept acquiring veterans and just trading away the picks, and they bottomed out, whereas a team like the Spurs kept scouting, kept using the picks. They add a Kawhi to their core. They add Danny Green wasn't a draft pick, but guys like that, they keep adding these young players that help with the core. So yeah, I think you kind of nailed it, that sustained success requires you to be able to draft well and continue developing those players.
For sure. I mean, it's what we've seen with the Warriors, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at their core was built through the draft, and then they made smart moves in free agency with guys like Andre Iguodala, and then a no-brainer in Kevin Durant. But, you know, drafting well is definitely something that can get you on the right track. So either way, if the Lakers keep these picks, I have full faith in them. They've kind of built that trust, I think, with their fans, and I'm excited. I'm excited for the draft already. 4 months away, but I'm ready for it. So, all right. I think we covered everything that we're going to be able to do. Again, the draft is so unpredictable, but it's always fun to speculate. Mike, I appreciate you so much for coming on. Love your draft analysis. I'm going to, obviously stay pay very close attention to it leading up to the draft. If you don't follow Mike on Twitter already, again, at Canyon Driver, Lakers analysis, draft analysis, definitely a go-to. And then Jacob Rude is at Jacob Rude on Twitter. If you want a lot of Duke stuff, I guess that's your thing.
A lot of Indiana stuff.
Hey, yeah, I can live with the Indiana stuff. It's that other team.
Haters gonna hate. We'll talk again in a week after we get some redemption against UNC.
Hey, even if you do, man, we're just even. So I feel like I got nothing to lose. But no, Mike, I just want to thank you again for coming on, and definitely as the draft, we start to build towards the draft, we'll definitely have to have you on again sometime.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me as a guest.
Yeah. Hopefully next time the picture will be a little more clear so we don't have to speculate quite as much, but no, it's all fun. So, all right. Well, that's going to do it for us this time. If you like the podcast, as always, you can subscribe to us on YouTube, Podbean, and iTunes. You can find all of our content on LakersOutsiders.com. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, all that. We also have a Patreon account, so if you want to contribute for as little as $1 a month, feel free to just go to patreon.com/LakersOutsiders, I believe. Yeah, this was fun. I appreciate you guys both joining me here, and the Lakers are back tomorrow, so I'm ready for it. NBA's back. The break is always way too long, and hopefully soon we'll have some all-stars on the Lakers so that all-star weekend isn't as rough next year. So appreciate everybody that tuned in, sent us questions, comments, concerns. Gary Kester, along with Mike Garcia and Jacob Rude. Until next time, we'll see you guys later.